Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important 90 minutes of your day. I'm Michael, the MC and opportunity ambassador for today's adventure. And today's show is WTF
Else.
are we are we talking about today? But before we begin that discussion, let me introduce my fellow co-host, Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator,
Hi, everybody.
Willow, our trauma consultant,
Hi, everyone.
and Dennis, our freedom facilitator.
Blessed love, beautiful people. Thank you for being with us.
If you didn't notice, we almost started on time today, but
Nobody would expect that.
so yeah, we're trying to throw some curveballs at you. But,
Hey, Dennis, can you move your camera just a little bit down? I'm looking at the thing and you're...
This
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it looked like you were just like resting your chin on the Raising Excellence bar. It didn't look very excellent.
I can't even
Chin
take a
ups.
little rest these days.
So
So,
WTF?
WTF is going with you guys.
WTF? Wasn't that the third building that no plane went into?
No.
That was World Trade Center 7. I'm pretty sure. Or not. It wasn't World Trade Center. It was
Yeah.
Dennis,
Building
that's an
7.
acronym. So,
WTC.
just so you know, Dennis,
WTC.
you are in you're I know you're in Germany and your English sometimes has some little missing things. So WTF is a North American saying for what the censored, and it means generally like you may not know, or you may be confused, or you may have no idea what the show is about because we have no host this week. But because we have no host, we have 4 hosts. Hello everybody. Here, meet your 4 hosts. So if anybody would like to direct this conversation, send us a message and we will answer any question, every question, and support you on your journey to excellence.
Yeah.
That sounded really
what
cheesy,
a great
didn't
call
it?
that is, eh?
Yeah, cheesy.
It wasn't that cheesy.
No, not that cheesy. Okay,
Not that cheesy. It was nicely worded.
nicely worded.
Imagine, the ability
But-
to getting the journey to excellence personally attended to by those 4 amazing hosts.
Well, as a matter of fact, one of the things, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I think people are like getting to the point that they're on the edge of like losing their minds. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a lot of people that are like exhausted from all the stress and stuff out there. They seem to be really edgy.
I've noticed
Anybody
it
else
with,
notice this?
Yeah, with majority of my clients and my friends and myself a lot of times. There was like a period of time in the last 3 weeks where everything has just been chaotic.
I wonder if
can't
that's
figure out which day.
planetary though. Is it like
I
is it like an
I don't know.
astrology thing where everybody goes weird, or is it because of the COVID thing? Do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I think both, kind of, maybe. Like,
I just
don't really know.
watched-
I don't know much about astrology and stuff, and I try not to be like, oh, the planets have a sway over my feelings, and that's why I'm feeling that way. I'm really
They have a
cautious
sway
about
over
that.
the ocean. I mean, I'm not really big into astrology, but if the planets have a sway over the ocean, why wouldn't they have a sway over you, which is 90% water?
I think so too.
90
Which
plus.
also, I think, if that is true, I wouldn't be surprised if the current situation is
Coming into the age of Aquarius.
no, it's like piggybacking
Yeah.
on this emotional roller coaster. At the very least, the current situation hasn't helped anyone's chaotic. No one can maintain a routine. Lines are blurred between home and safe space. You haven't seen your friends in a long time, although like my friends are starting to get back to normal, which is really awesome.
I see my friends all the time. Look, I'm looking at them now.
Physical contact, like not just like
What's
hugging,
that?
but like actually being around people and seeing them face to face.
That's the girl at the checkout counter. You say hi to her. She says hi back. That's the physical contact, right?
That is true.
It's
but you
overrated. It's
probably need to
overrated
see
to have
most of their
physical contact
face.
with people, with real people. No, but actually, I had a pretty good experience today. Well, better than the past weeks and probably even months, because as I came to the gym where I started teaching last week, and then all the children came, and their last week was all weird because they have these strange rules, what you can do, what you can't do, and the owner was there, and like he's like, and I'm like, and then you have to like stick funny tapes on the floor with and measure meters, and then like I'm supposed to explain to the children, okay, wear your muzzle, but then if you stand in your like square, you can take it off, but if you have to go to the toilet, put it back on, and it's like, so I
And
tried
how do
like
you explain that to a
half-assed to.
3-year-old?
It doesn't make sense, and and I'm feeling weird because the parents that come inside and want to look and watch, which is natural, like I want to retain the ability to to watch the teacher that's teaching whatever to my child, so it's like I'm not gonna tell him to leave. But then I don't know, like, because there's snitches, not there necessarily, but cases are there where they have sent people to gyms, and I want to try a class today, boof, and then after gym, boof, they pull out their ID and they say, okay, they sue you for 5,000 or so, the gym owner, because he did not follow up to all the rules like precisely, or there was somebody who like lifted the mask or whatever foolishness. So, but today I came, and there was yesterday there was a change in rules. So now even contact sports like martial arts and stuff are allowed to have, is it like 5 people, and so today we're allowed to, not we, because I don't put on that thing anyway, but then
But
the
you were
children,
allowed to
they're
teach
allowed,
a class properly.
yeah, without being afraid of giving assistance, or like they do like a cartwheel or a
Could you
handstand or like a bridge, so I have to hold them and protect them and make sure they learn those movements. And yes, like last week was like, it's like, if I touch her right now, like, is the father, the mommy who's watching, are they like gonna like scream out, or is it gonna be an issue or so? And like it was all weird because I had to focus on everybody around me, not only the students I'm supposed to teach. But today it was good. Everybody was running around, we had so much fun. And the point I'm getting to is like, wow, this, not having had that, like the simplest of all things, like being able to teach like a simple capoeira class in for the sake of that example, being able to do that now again without being like too much pressured and having all this foolishness around. This is like, wow, like what is it actually, that's huge potential that is there. So the appreciation of, wow, I can work with the children, we can relax, we can smile, we can play games, we can do all of those things that we used to take for granted. And now I'm doing what I used to do, but I do it with a sense of appreciation, which does not justify taking it away, but it's just a fact, a factor that, once you learn to appreciate things again, or with renewed focus, so to say, after it was taken from you.
So a friend of mine sent me a video today, and she's an older lady in the States, and it was about a sweatshop making those blue masks that they, the medical masks, and so there were like a few East Indian looking men and a few young boys, and they were barefoot, wearing jeans, sitting on the floor, putting together the masks, folding them like on the ground next to their feet, folding the masks, and then passing them on to the guy who was sitting at the desk and sewing the little edge on and the little things. And then as he was sewing, the rest of the masks were like piling on the floor underneath the guy's feet that was barefoot, sitting at the machine and sewing. It was quite an experience. I wasn't exactly shocked because I've seen sweatshops and videos before, and like I've seen the not toothpick. I'm sure toothpick is just as bad, but I've seen a chopstick manufacturer situation where they were basically cutting the chopsticks and throwing them on this big pile in the middle of the ground, like on the ground outside, and then somebody was picking up 2 at a time and putting them in paper sleeves from the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'm carrying my own chopsticks. Although then the COVID thing happened and I haven't. But but that's just kind of weird that somebody was stepping on the chopsticks and now I'm putting them in my mouth. Like it was on the ground. This guy was walking on them. And the guy with feet from like that works, but probably his feet are healthier than mine. I'm sure he walks barefoot all the time, so he probably has no fungus or anything. I hope.
Yikes.
I
Yeah,
don't even know what to think of that.
Well, and so my friend was educating me about how masks are dangerous, and I was like, well, dude, preaching to the choir, I already know that for a dozen other reasons, but this is an interesting new reason. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think Patrick Bet David, Valuetainment, or he had a video about how ineffective masks are because you're going to have to like take it down and stuff like that. And he had like a lady with like ink on her, like invisible ink on her hands, and she showed how she just like it was all over her face by the time it was over, and she was like doing it by the by the standards of how you're supposed to like take the mask off and stuff like that.
And where are the
So
biohazard disposal sites where we can discard the infected ones?
yeah,
Because I
Apparently,
say
people think that's
the back
the
alley.
grocery carts. No, they're grocery carts.
It's-
You know what I mean? Like grocery carts are like dumped out. I've like literally just dumped over it. So I'm like, I'm not touching your nasty gloves. Like, probably wore those everywhere.
Pictures? Sorry. Have you guys seen? It's not pictures. It's like drawings of from colonial times, when of the masks and the muzzles, like literal muzzles that they put on slaves' mouths.
So they
to
couldn't
prevent them from
eat the
speaking.
crops that they were, and it was locked in the back of the head, and the owner of the plantation got to unlock it at the end of the day, so the slave couldn't eat or drink all day long, and it was just this metal thing on top of his mouth.
Or talk too.
Or talk.
That
back.
gives a whole new perspective on that stuff as well.
Actually, it's funny because
Yeah.
one of my friends was like, tried to go to a hairdresser, and her hairdresser was no masks allowed kind of hairdresser. And she wrote this big thing on Facebook saying, oh my gosh, why would anybody do that? And all I did was take the picture of that slave with the muzzle and the description from the book that's floating around the internet. And I said, maybe this is the reason. And I posted the picture. But of course, she didn't respond at all.
Yeah. Well, there is there's a level of fear that I think some people identify with that they just can't get beyond. And then there's other people that actually rationally kind of understand that there's something else going on. But I think that's kind of why they want to have that political divide, especially in the United States, is because you do have, it's like the half are left brain and half are right brain, and they've each got their own story about why they're right. And it's it's kind of the perfect situation to pull that off, because while they're fighting with each other, the banks are being unloaded.
Well, I
And
mean, isn't
it's
that
a
always the
reflect-
case that somebody's fighting with someone and there's stuff going on behind your back that we don't really know about or what it is, but something is going on?
But the thing that kind of intrigued me is this idea that you can become addicted to fear. And
Look at it from that perspective. So is that something new, or is that a condition that the majority, like I'm leaning out myself there, but let's say the majority of people have been living in that stage and have been, fear mongering and being afraid and being kept like that as well, which is, reflected also in, what we talked a little earlier about, food and eating. So what is, you eat the fear even with your food, because the things that many people consume are being kept in a continuous state of fear as well. So that's a whole different aspect. So the idea is like, is the mask wearing and the over fear mongering, is that something new that never was there from before, or is that just a different level of expression of something that has been building and has been there from before, something that brings it out to the surface? You couldn't see maybe that readily, like where people were. Now it's like right there in your face and in their face, so to say. You can see it, you can physically identify, okay, he or she is afraid, or they're buying into this narrative and that narrative, and without judging, everybody should have his own or her own, you know, how you say, way of understanding and of taking the issue. But yeah, of course, it's an issue like if you try to impose that on other people around you, and
By force.
by force. Yeah, that's a whole
So
different thing.
I was actually just having this or at least I think the exact same conversation that this is referring to. While I was on a walk with my husband right before the show, we saw a gentleman wearing a mask outside, which it was 87 in my house today without air conditioning. Um, so really, it's still 83 degrees outside, and this guy is mowing his yard with a mask on, and he's an older, um, middle-aged to older gentleman, clearly sweating his ass off. And our first reaction was, "Oh my god, like how dumb do you have to be to put a mask on your face in this heat?" And then I started thinking, like, a counselor or someone's trying to help, and I was like, well, the reason I don't wear a mask is to avoid panic. Maybe they're putting a mask on to avoid panic. Maybe it actually does keep them from panicking so much that they're not flooding their system with
Cortisol.
stress hormone, like cortisol and stress chemicals.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, okay, well, that's basically like Stockholm syndrome. That's knowing that you receive less stress when you just comply and you obey. That's actually folding and fawning when you when you get down to it. That's the chemical response that's going on. Your body is like, I can't get out of this. I'm going to cause myself more panic. I need to not do this, which is my exact reasoning for not wearing a mask. So I'm not unique. Like, I am unique. I am one of a kind. I'm like crazy me. No one else can be me. But I have similar experiences. So if I'm doing something with a rational intent, until someone shows me different, I generally try to assume that other people are trying to act rationally, even if they are not succeeding. And it brought me back to, like, this is a conditioned response. This isn't something that just happens all the time. You have to be trained not to trust your intuition. You have to be trained to not feel the constriction of your breath and be like, this is okay, this is fine, I'm not like half suffocating. You don't just stop trusting your body in that reaction overnight. I think it's passed on through the parenting that we had in the last couple generations. We have a lot of trauma that's passed down through war vets and their families. There's a lot of sexual abuse that doesn't get talked about within families. It has a huge problem. There's neglect. There's the CPS system and foster care. And
What's a
on
CPS?
top of that, Child Protective Services.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So, with the equivalent of whatever that is, and it's different in every country.
Yeah.
But and on top of that, almost every single child goes through schooling, which is indoctrination and training, and furthers, like, it more reinforces all of this abuse and neglect and trauma that you've had in the past. And yeah, I think that's kind of what. And also, I'm not so sure that that's not the. I shouldn't say I'm not so sure. I'm pretty sure that that's the government's goal, like end goal. It's to like make people these compliant
automatons.
Automatons, yeah.
Pawns. Like, it's not even just like, oh, these are my robots that I get. It's just like, oh, these are my playthings. Like, these are the things that I get to manipulate, and that's a very abusive tactic that I see many people not being able to see, that in their own relationships, in their lifestyles, their interactions that are not consensual. No one is labeling this shit as not consensual anymore.
Like you said, discernment is not to be taken for granted, right? It's not a skill that belongs to everyone. And hello to Tony McCurdy, who is listening and wishes he says, hello everyone, another beautiful day in the USSA. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts and words. So thanks, Tony. It's nice to
Thank you so much, Tony, for your feedback.
Have you.
Well appreciated.
Yes. But you know what I was watching one of those YouTube channels. I think it was Observation Deck the other day. And he was saying about how, maybe it wasn't him, I don't know, one of the conversations I've had lately, somebody was saying how people in Europe would never tolerate the kind of TV fear-mongering that's happening in America, in the States. And even in Canada, we wouldn't tolerate a helicopter chasing a private car down the street, zooming in, like whatever the guy did. I mean, it's just like, I mean, he would have to do something major, like, you know, kill the president or shoot the president or some, or prime minister in Canada, right? To actually have that kind of attention, right? A regular whatever, I don't think that would really fly. And I've never seen that in Canada.
This is actually something with school shootings that has been the case, and that as far as my knowledge goes, that has been heavily restricted because of that reason. The behavior of the media, focusing on this, you know, the supposedly lone guy who goes and shoots, and, you know, hyping it up, putting his name, his pictures all over the place and stuff, and this is what encourages others to follow suit. And then one can argue if that is done on purpose as well, you know, to portray him kind of like as the hero of the story, because he's all over, you know, everybody sees him and he's all over the media. So I'm glad to see that there's places where that is not being done, and where, you know,
Well,
things are not
Germany,
being hyped up.
Germany is a place like that, isn't it?
It had, I think we had actually the school shooting with the most victims, if I'm not totally wrong, a couple of years back. But and I remember then reading something about that, about the psychology behind it, and what supposedly drives people who commit those things, and that is a huge factor, you know, that they're actually out there in the media, and that it's, yeah. But I mean,
You,
talking about media these days, is there any quality media left over anyway?
This is
Dennis,
I think there's quality media. Media is just it's like
a knife.
what canvas is to an artist.
Yeah.
You know, a
that's
canvas
true.
could be a brick wall. It could be
But
your bedroom
media
wall.
does
It could be
have as at its core manipulation, right? Like not
Yeah.
not innately,
so
but
does magic. So does the idea of magic.
right.
Manipulation is not a negative connotation. It has a negative connotation, but it does not have a negative definition.
You're saying like neurolinguistic programming can be used for good or evil. You can do it on
it's
yourself.
just a tool. It's
Yeah.
like
Well,
a canvas. Like you
As
can use
soon
it
as
for
you
whatever.
take a picture, or you pick up a camera, or you pick up a microphone, and you say something there, and you know that other people will listen or will look at it, you want them to see things a certain way, whether it's conscious or subconscious. So, you know, I guess one could argue that every time that happens, you know, there's some kind of
Now I'm just
manipulation
thinking I
happening.
changed the scarf before the show because I thought this one would like show my like make me look better. Is just that a
See
type
that?
of
See that?
manipulation?
You
Right there.
manipulator! How dare you manipulate us with that fancy scarf?
It's not
So
really
evil.
fancier. It's just a better color with the shirt.
I wanted to
go ahead.
make a comment about like the school shootings because I like to know a bunch of random morbid kind of facts. One of the interesting things about school shootings was that since the 1990s, the number of school shootings has gone down. It has been in the decline. However, the number of victims in school shootings when they happen is going up.
You know what also goes up? The live exercises of those school shootings in the States. That's something mind-boggling. Without telling the parents, without telling the students, like I've heard of exercises where they shoot, you know, blanks and make everybody believe like it's going on right now, and they have, you know, police, and it's crazy. It's like installing, you know, trauma in people
Yes.
purposefully.
Absolutely.
It's getting them used to it and conditioned to it. Yeah.
While there's a chance
that's-
of 0.000 whatever, almost as big as the corona thing.
In
Well,
other
you know,
news, what have you been doing today?
What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Beer? I had some Coronas over the weekend. I'm good.
Dennis, you asked about fear, and is it growing, or is it something that's, you know, that's been happening for a long time? And I would say that it's been perpetually getting worse. And if you look at a lot of the different things that are going on, I mean, like, for example, like if you look at movies, a lot of the movies now, or, you know, in the past few years, they've had it where like the people that are on the news are also in the movie as the news, you know, so it's like you almost have that kind of thing going on. And, you know, like the Facebook contagion experiment that they did, where they demonstrated that they can change people's moods by how they feed them information, and then like their mood can be then transferred to other people in their circles.
Talking about
So
egregor from last time.
yeah,
Maybe.
to a large degree, that I mean, it really, but really a demonstration where they can actually do something that people don't even realize they're doing, so that they can kind of create the circumstances where people are essentially acting like robots. And then the other thing is like you mentioned, Willow, is it's almost like it's a perpetual trauma now. It's not just a traumatic event like like World Trade Center or Pearl Harbor or something like that. It's like an ongoing, everyday.
What's the trauma of the
People are-
day?
You wanna-
Today we
you wanna know
have
my
3
theory?
murders, 15 assaults, and 17 world treasons.
You guys saw that movie Brazil? You familiar with that?
It's been a
No.
while, but I have saw it. I've seen
You
it.
remember there's like terrorist attacks all the time throughout the movie. There's something explodes here and there, and that's the normal right there.
Yeah.
My theory about that is that, and this is just based on personal experience. Do you know what happens when, like, let's say you had a really traumatic event and you can't get over it, so you're stuck in that mode and you go through that for years and years and years, stuck in that mode, and then you find a wonderful man or woman and you get married and you have everything that you think you want. Do you know what happens?
You get unsatisfied.
Backlash.
All of a sudden, your shit falls apart because you're in a safe place. If you have a supportive system where you feel safe, all of that shit that just got like locked away in your head because it wasn't safe to take care of it, it's now safe to take care of it, and you get to take care of it. So if this happens naturally, like
So
without,
keeping
like, you don't have a
yourself
choice,
in
you can't stop
trauma.
it.
So keeping yourself in trauma keeps you from looking inside at the dark parts of yourselves and keeps you in ignorance, and therefore being stressed out and following the directive of the media to be fearful and do things that possibly are unhealthy to you because of fear is actually an escape from facing your own trauma.
And I think
Exactly. You
part
can.
of me, sorry, I wanted to say one. I was like,
Go on.
part of me is really excited and happy that there is consistent trauma going on.
Because
you know
what?
that
More,
tells me?
more clients?
No, not for that. That's a sad fact, but I can't, like, I didn't start that. I'm just here to help people who are been affected, so I don't
Just
take
being
any blame for
facetious.
that. But yeah, but no, I was meaning, shit, what was I saying?
Sorry.
Threw me
Very
off track.
excited. People are in continuous trauma.
I'm not excited they're in continuous trauma, but it means that people have developed the ability to find safe places and learn how to heal.
Oh.
And that's very, very dangerous to the system. So they have to, like, if they allow you to heal like that, I mean, whatever they're threatened by, I think that's a hugely powerful thing. And it's something that is promising to me, where it's like, they wouldn't be trying so hard if there were no chance.
Oh.
There's a chance. They're afraid of something, and that is always going to be a win in my book.
I was just gonna go there, and healing was really the word I had on my mind as well. There is there's a point when it's a play of contraction and relaxation, right? So if you're under trauma, in the example that you were touching upon, then and the trauma is being extended, but eventually you reach the point where everything is fine, you get married and you have all you want, basically. So that is the point where you can relax. So when you finally reach that point where you can relax, then the whole fight and flight trauma kind of can wear off, and like the pressure is not there again, and you start to relax. And it's only in that when the curve goes down, basically, if you go into relaxation, that actual healing can take part. Because before that, you cannot heal if you're under fight and flight and if adrenaline is high. So it's only when the relaxation part sets in that you get the symptoms. which is very interesting. If I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it's so-called new Germanic medicine or new medicine. It's called. It's a very interesting topic. It get it shows also that the symptoms of a sickness will only when you get the actual symptoms of, let's say, flu, the actual sickness is already over, because you already went through the sickness, but the symptoms only set in when your body is already dealing with the thing. So you only,
Yeah.
you get the running nose, and so the actual thing is already over. So, but you're in relaxation, and then it's like, okay, your body can kind of relax and can deal with stuff right now, and then your body works through the healing, and the symptoms is part of the healing process. And if you look at it, it's very telling. When get people sick? On the weekend, when
Yep.
when holidays start. As soon as the holidays come, big summer holidays, oh, we want to go, I don't know, catch a plane, or go to wherever it is, and then relax. Then all in a sudden, people get sick and get all those symptoms. It's very interesting statistically. The numbers go up as soon as there's no more stress with work, and people can finally take a breath, and poof, and then your body goes into recovery and tries to heal, and then all the symptoms that you would have been suppressing before, because you had to function, you have to survive, you have to get up in the morning, you have to make your days worth of money in order to survive. So it's all survival. And as soon as you can catch a breath, you don't have to suppress, your body doesn't have to suppress it, and it allows the
And it
symptoms to
expresses it.
happen, so it can heal. Yeah.
Another strange pattern that happens. So imagine if you have spent a lifetime in this cycle of relaxing, and then all of your symptoms come back, and then you stress out, and then you find a safe place and you relax, and then all your symptoms come back and you stress out, and it happens over and over and over for the rest of your life. Eventually, relaxing is going to trigger you to get upset, because it's going to be like, no, 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 no relaxing. We all know where that goes. Why are we doing this again? Who's in control? What's going on? Like, they're just going to start freaking out. And that's where a lot of people end up. Their firefighter, the one who's supposed to put out the fires of the crazy emotions, they become a manager, which means you start drinking at 10 a.m. to stop yourself from having a reaction, instead of waiting until you have the reaction to start drinking.
Yeah. That's funny because I kind of experienced that as a child. So there was a lot of like abandonment issues in my childhood. I was living with my grandmother, then I was moved in with my parents, then my mother went away for a year, then my father went away for a year to like work and study in different countries. And so and then my father finally left when I was 8. So all of this abandonment, and by the time I was like 8 years old, I remember thinking, don't get excited about anything. Because if you get excited about something bad's going to happen. Like all these bad things that happen, that's because you were too happy. Don't be happy. Don't be excited, and everything will be fine. And so for a while, I don't know, a couple years, maybe a few years, I had this idea that if I don't get excited about the things that I'm looking forward to, then bad things won't happen, and those things won't be canceled or whatever. And I don't know what ultimately moved that out, but...
I had that moment. I was a little bit older, so I had the wherewithal to kind of compartmentalize it better, just out of sheer, difference in age. But it was kind of like don't get excited about things. That way, if it doesn't happen, when it doesn't happen, you lost nothing. Mm-hmm. And when it does happen, you get to be extra excited for a short amount of time.
But actually...
because something happened.
But actually, you're actually undermining your own manifestation. You're like, your own mind creation is being fragile because you're not excited about it, because it's the excitement that feeds your passions and your ideas are.
So true. I was just thinking about the children.
Hang on, Mike hasn't said anything for a while. Let him.
Go, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, Bruce Lipton in epigenetics, he talks about the idea of the nocebo, like essentially your mind can, under suggestion, your mind can kind of develop a sickness. If someone tells you you're sick, you can become sick. And I think that's kind of one of the problems that we've got here. And honestly, I feel like the humanity is pretty resilient, based upon like what it's being,
Fed.
what is going on, what they're trying to tell, what they're trying to
Well,
program into people's minds. But to me, that suggests that the fact that it isn't happening the way that they think it is, like they want a pandemic to happen so that everybody is running around with their heads chopped off. But the reality is it's not happening. So now they have to twist it into like a political thing where half the people are on one side and half the people are on the other. But to me, that's kind of like it's already down the line of Plan B. And so I do feel like it is positive in a lot of ways what we're seeing.
Well,
But
think about
it's
all the weird news that that have happened in the States, especially because I think the States is somehow the epicenter of this. All the strange news, the deadly hornets, the death storm from Sahara, the disappearing fires in Antarctica that are gonna kill us all, or invisible fires. That's what it was.
yeah,
There's a lot of
there
weird
are a lot
shit.
of like those strange off the wall stuff, but I think what's more important is like what Mike was saying when you said something about how we're taught to take care of our health. We are taught to be healthy, you have to take pills. To be healthy, you have to eat this food. To be healthy, you have to, do this, do that, all this stuff. Um, when I'm anemic, I crave things with iron in them because my body tells me, hey, bitch, you need some iron. Go eat some iron. Like, we're
You
not
know what's
told...
got a lot of iron? Parsley.
Oh, nice. Okay. I've never liked parsley particularly, but I probably should use it more. But also, like, and here's another trick. Like, okay, I believe that's true, but I also believe that I tell people after sessions all the time, you are going to crave sugar. Your brain has associated with quick fix energy, and it's what you think you need. Try eating something with high fats and butter, butter, grass-fed butter,
Or
some
just go for
eggs.
ice cream. It's got both high fats and sugar.
Try things like that and like wean yourself off. And eventually, like when you get down to like a baseline of actual nutritional food that is giving you nutrition,
Cheese.
your body will tell you what it wants.
Nice
it will tell
German
you what it
Edam.
needs. And it will tell you when something is not right.
I know Dennis is looking at me going, bananas or watermelon, bananas, apples.
Nice Canadian frozen bananas.
Canadian
was-
frozen bananas?
We don't grow
Never mind,
Canadian
never mind.
bananas.
I was actually going to add on to the topic of children and getting excited that it's such a joy to observe children, especially young children, when they get excited, to have that pristine, joy and excitement, and they're just all that, and we seem to forget about that, and we are restricted and inhibited in the expression of our feelings, and that's something that brings sickness. Like a healthy human being should be able to express his or her feelings, which doesn't mean you have to over
Scream at
exaggerating
people.
that, but retain the ability to marinate in those feelings, whether they're like on the up or on the downside. Because if we were not meant to have those feelings, then why do we have them in the first place? So we have the ability to taste the sweet and the sour, the salty, and all the taste that life has to offer, and expressing our feelings is a way of coping with that as well. And there has to be a time for joy, there has to be a time for mourning, or even for depression as well, because how are you going to be able to appreciate joy if you have never seen like the sad or the dark side of life, so to say? And then I would say marinate in that until you had enough. And if you had enough, then that may bring you to the point of seeing that you are not those feelings. So I'm not, like, what I'm saying is like, don't restrict you from having and experiencing those feelings, but have them and dwell in them as much and as long as you want, but realize at the same time that that's not who you is. You are not the sadness, you're not the depression, and you're not the fluttered and the joy and whatever. Those also can be manipulations. We talked about that. You can be manipulated to be sad, you can be manipulated to be somebody's going to give you 1,000 compliments just to get you in that state, and then just to try to get you in that state as well. So both of them can be manipulation.
I
But
like compliments.
yeah, me too. I could be better at giving them still. You're looking nice today, all of you.
Oh, thank
Anyway, but but
compliments.
remember and know that you're not that. The feelings are there, for you to experience them, but not to be them. Don't be the feelings. You're the one that is experiencing the feelings. You're not the feeling itself.
Yeah.
I love that correlation between like there is a part of me that every time you say, "Are you that feeling?" wants to go, "Yeah." Like it makes me kind of angry, and then I'm like,
Shut
"But
up,
he's
Dennis.
right."
What are you talking about?
And I
Of course, I'm
realize-
that feeling.
I realize it's because it doesn't describe the experience correctly. When you are feeling sad and you are overwhelmed by it, you are sadness. And a lot of times I have to ask my clients and myself, am I talking to yourself? Like, am I talking to self or am I talking to a part? And a lot of times they don't realize that you get questions back like, what do you mean? I don't understand. Am I one person? Is there someone else here? Like, they'll start asking questions like that. And then you start asking questions like, how old are you? And an age will come up like 12. And you're like, wait, no, I'm 25. I'm not 12. What? And then you start realizing that you're actually talking to another part that is part of you. And that's why it's so hard to figure out. You've been living with these parts your entire life. You just don't realize when you transition into them or when they take over, when their knowledge is necessary and you have like a biological program that's like, hey, you need this part. Like, this is why we all have parts, because they're designed to protect self. And most people aren't acting from self. They're acting from their sadness or their anger, or a manager or a firefighter that holds those feelings, because that's the way that they have learned how to navigate the world.
Yeah.
I was always reading books, always listening to books on tape. But I was listening to one by Landon Brown, and he was talking about words versus tone versus senses. And what he was suggesting is that words are like the least powerful, and we know how powerful words are. But you could do a whole diatribe of words and just change your tone, and people won't believe you.
Yep.
And so tone is incredibly more powerful than words.
Are you preparing a presentation on that, or?
Honestly, I was talking to you a little bit about this morning in regard to
I think that'd be
research
cool.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
But beyond tone is actions. And so again, it's like people demonstrate their true beliefs through their actions, and most people don't really understand that that's kind of another form of nonverbal communication, like long-term actions in general, but also long-term actions, like what they do over a period of time, also kind of demonstrates something that people that are discerning can see that stuff. And of course, you're what's the word I'm looking for? But Agnieszka, you know this.
I know what word you're looking for.
No, well, yeah, the idea that nonverbals are very powerful.
Yes. So in psychosomatic therapy, we do talk about that 7%. Your verbal words, your actual words, account for 7% of communication, and there are body language and tone that account for the rest. Body language is the majority of it. Tone is like 30%, I think, and words are 7%.
So,
What I was just going to the point I was trying to make here is that with people being forced to wear masks and stuff, they're essentially being put into like creating an action that everybody can see that's like really powerful because everybody's doing it. but it's really kind of forcing people to like lose their ability to like see facial expressions and stuff like that. So their mind is being messed with, so that it's, in my opinion, easier for people to lie to them. Because if they can't see if you're smiling or if you're frowning when you're talking to them, they can't really decipher, are you lying, are you telling the truth, what are you talking about, and so it's
Can you even communicate like
I was
this?
just gonna say you can't even that is it's even hard to lie because you can't even hear what they say.
Well, remember what you told me, Agnieszka, about the different parts of the face, where like the forehead represents your intellect,
Your intelligence,
and
your memory, and your observation. There are three
your
sections.
eyes. I remember emotion.
Heart,
yeah, the conveyor of like
throat,
expressive emotions, and your face
solar
had to do with
plexus.
your actions.
Yeah,
much
so
action you
base
take in the world.
chakra is this here. This is your sacral around the mouth. So your creative expression and all of that would be stifled if you cannot share your lips.
But also your ability to enact your thoughts, to put them out into the world. There's literally
and speak
a
up
barrier
for
in
yourself. Yeah,
So-
for a lot of people it could really make a barrier for speaking up for themselves.
so isn't that to me is very interesting, that's kind of a possibility, that's really what they're after. And I mean, that I think that is another step up on the barometer of like what they're attempting to do.
What not to
And
do.
by putting a barrier there, you force people to make a clear decision, right? Is that barrier something? First of all, do they recognize the barrier? And it's difficult not to recognize this thing in your face, right? And then the decision is, am I gonna put up with it? Am I gonna stay on this side of the barrier, or am I gonna actually like climb over, dig underneath it, or find a way left, ground, center?
But some people
cross
think
it.
it's a
The problem-
fashion statement.
No, I think even worse, the problem is the people who don't think it's a fashion statement, the people who think that they're actually protecting people's lives. I feel so much pity for them.
But it's enough to
That's
say,
a hard
okay,
thing.
okay, so there are two different types, right? One type is for dirty environments where nothing gets in, but everything from inside gets out. And so that's not good for the thing. That's the N95, right? Those are designed for dirty environments. That's why all the construction workers wear them, because nothing gets in, but everything you breathe out, there's an open vent that breathes everything out. So no barrier on the out, only a barrier on the in. And the second ones are the ones that prevent anything from coming out, like the ones for sterile environments, for operation rooms and things like that. And those keep everything in and nothing comes out. But it doesn't really have anything blocking the larger, like bacteria would probably not come in, but viruses are very, very tiny and there is nothing blocking them from coming in. It's just from getting out. And besides, it's not even stuck to your face. It's sort of like this for most people.
I'm pretty sure the only one that is actually effective at all against any viruses is a legit like actual ventilator gas mask.
Tony
Which if those come back into style, that'd be kind of cool.
Tony McCurdy just said that he's in the garden and he's playing as for the neighborhood to hear.
I hope your neighborhood enjoys us.
I hope your neighborhood's enlightened, Tony.
Let's talk to
Otherwise,
neighbors.
you may not make any
Snitches get
friends with this conversation.
If they have any questions, feel free to write it in the comment section and we will answer them as well. Friends of our friends are always welcome.
That's right. And even if they're not friends, just have questions or contest their
Just
opinions.
Concerned neighbors. He's mowing the lawn without a mask.
Yeah, I hope his neighbors maybe are not wearing masks. They might be a little offended by this whole episode.
It's
all of
what
our
he's
episodes.
making sounds really cool. We should have Tony on as a guest one day. He said he made a double amphitheater with a grill top and a plastic pool. That sounds like a dream of a backyard. I want to be there.
Sounds pretty cool.
Of course, now I'm thinking
Sounds
about
like
my
a
next
sanctuary.
backyard.
He
Yeah.
sounds like
Now
he's
I'm
ready
thinking
for a
about
second
grilling.
It's ready for a second wave. It's too
Don't get us
late
started.
in the night in Germany. Dennis's sense of humor is taking it the other side. We can hear more. Maybe you should be the humorist for Toastmasters this week.
It's simple out there, so make we slide out there. Another Jamaican tune. Max
Yes.
Romeo. You
Nice.
say it's simple out there. It's slippery out there, so let's go slide out there. And the road is slippery. We go out and we slide on it. We ride the wave.
A Jamaican guy wrote that.
Max
Yeah, that
Romeo,
sounds
big
like,
Obviously, he's
artist.
never seen a Canadian winter.
I'm telling you, that's definitely slippery.
War in a Babylon is the name of the tune. War in a Babylon.
Nice.
Max Romeo.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds cool. So now what? We have talked about all different things, and we still don't know what the F we're talking about.
That's the beauty of it. It just keeps on going.
Keeps
we
on
don't have
going.
to define it. We just have to live it.
So you had your first class this week. That was totally free. That's awesome. Or today, was it?
Yeah. Well, totally free. As soon as they step on the mat, they were allowed to, free themselves of the muzzles. The children last week were like, but hold on, but you don't have one. Why don't you have one? I said, like, okay. I said my doctor didn't allow for it. And it's like, hold on, but so they started thinking, I was like, oh god, now I have to like choose my words very carefully because whatever I tell them, they're gonna run home and talk to mommy. They're like, hey, the teacher with a new capoeira thing, like he didn't wear, and he said like you don't have to, and you have to be free. And then it's like, oh, then people are gonna call in, and
Yeah.
but it all went good.
I actually wanted to get your take on that. Like, how do you handle that? Because I often struggle with it because I have a client who does not like to wear masks, and her mother wants her to, and I'm like, you should listen to what your mom wants you to do, especially when you're staying, like, if you're living in her house, like, that's kind of a respectful thing to do. But one day they offered me a mask, and I said no, and the first thing out of her mouth was, why doesn't she have to wear one?
Yeah, big time. Like I would just say honestly, just talk. You think, well, I think this and that way, and make sure that you don't put anyone down or label. It's like, oh no, these fools, they think like this, and and I think that's how you act anyway, because you can see that that everybody has a choice, and has his or her choice. So you respect the choice, even if it's your client or so. But then you also stand your ground and you make your own choices, and then it's up to them to decide if they accept that and if they still want to be your client. But of course, you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like by not, like I told the teacher, I told you last week about that in my daughter's school. I said I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna come in, but I won't wear one of those. And my research shows like this and that, and I laid out my reasons, and I'm not gonna enforce it either. Like I'm not gonna work with children and force them to obey rules that I think are foolish. And so I made it clear, and I didn't get through. So, but that's a risk I guess one has to take, for taking a stance. But at the same time, it's an opportunity that other people start looking and say, hey, oh, it actually makes sense what he says, and maybe I should say something too. And if enough people do that, maybe things could change like that. But I think it's always important to point out, well, that's that is your perspective, and like I think it's like this and like that, but that you make sure you don't talk down or you talk bad about somebody else, because children will perceive that very quickly, and then you force them to take sides, which is not, it shouldn't be the case. They should be able to see, oh, there's a variety of opinions, there's a different perspective, there's a different view, and I think that's really valuable.
I think it's very important
I guess-
to not talk down about somebody else, whatever their choice is.
What I was expressing is, I find myself in a strange position and a strange feeling that I can't quite identify when I am clearly exercising a freedom of choice that someone else is not allowed to have, and they start questioning why they don't have that choice. That's like, it's like being the mirror, because it's like, I don't wear a mask because I choose not to, and then other people who are like, well, I was told I didn't have a choice, so what's up with that? And I'm like, yeah, everyone has a choice.
It's a
You know,
challenge,
like,
isn't it? Like
especially
in a
especially in a
public setting.
democracy. Democracy means that we vote on it and stuff, right? But we're supposed to get both sides of the argument. And the fact that, and I think this is the opportunity to really like talk to people, because like you're right, Willow, it is a choice, and people should be understanding that it's a choice. So if it's a choice, then what are the pros and cons on both sides? You know, so like if you ask people what, oh, well, I'm just wearing it because they told me to, or I'm wearing it because
Because a
I'm
nice Chinese
afraid.
lady gave it to me for free, and I didn't have to pay for it, and matches my skirt.
I think the point is also the choice, who is giving the choice and what kind of choice are you given? Like, do you really have choices if all the choices that you were offered is between Burger King and McDonald's or Pepsi and Coke? It's like, oh, you have choice. It's like you can choose this or that. But, what if I think both
What
of them are
about
correct?
water? I choose water. Cheers.
Fluoridated
Well,
water.
like if you go into a business and an employee says, well, I don't have a choice. My employer says I've got to wear one.
You have
And
a choice of employers.
well, and that's the
true.
thing is, have you considered that your employer may not have your health in mind? Have you considered that? And then if you talk to the manager, if the manager, well, higher up said I should do this. Do you care about your people? Do you understand that there's a choice, and they should be making that choice, because this thing could be unhealthy? There's things that could go wrong with this situation. The fact that the higher ups are doing it and you're just carrying it out as as the order follower.
So
Do you
Tony wrote
realize
us
that there's
another
that?
message.
Sure.
Tony wrote us another. He said, haha, you guys are awesome. But yeah, I'm just a conspiracy researcher. He spells researcher funny. He spells it N-U-T. But I know he means researcher. So he's just a conspiracy researcher to everyone around here. Even when I hand them the info, they just turn the other cheek. It's like walking around Zombieland. Well, you have to select your zombies or non-zombies who you hang out with.
Well, I think there's always some way to spark people, back into their humanity, and
Even if it's
I
with a kick in
feel.
the butt.
Well, I honestly, I feel like starting with people's strengths, like what is it, so like being able to ask questions, but being able to ask questions that lead to them displaying some quality that you can point out to them, because here, here again is like a real opportunity for all of us, is like if we're encouraging, if we're positive, if we're bringing out positive things out of them, it's going to be hard for them to argue with us, and so like starting with people's strengths also kind of disarms them from thinking that you're some kind of you know bad guy. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, there's not a whole lot of people out there that are like looking for other people's strengths, and looking to encourage people to build upon that. But I think that's kind of a way that we can enter into conversations and ask questions that can bring people back from being a zombie. It's the system has created zombies on both sides of the political spectrum for a reason. And
So they can
if
fight
we
each
have
other.
the cure,
It's like a
if we have the
global
cure, if we can.
chicken fight or rooster fight on a
Yeah.
global scale.
Yeah, but if we can just put a little dropper on their head, and boom, they turn back into a human, and we
You're
keep
talking
them
about the water of life story that I have on YouTube.
Oh, I was gonna go into the zombie lore.
You're right onto the, like, because if you go into negativity and you talk down to them or you cuss them out, or and even if you don't voice it, but if that's the energy you carry inside yourself, like, oh, all those fools, all those idiots, and you walk to the street like that, then it's gonna resonate in the open or in the non-visible realms.
And you're
And I
gonna
feel
pull
you're
the
right on with that.
fools.
To you first have to stand in your own power, and just like last week you shared this fantastic tool that you're developing, that get your superpowers up to charge and turn the lever and be there, like within yourself. And then even if you don't say a word, I bet you're gonna see how that influence other people, and even more so if you choose the right words, and like you said, you find the right the open door, so to say, because there is open doors always. And then
Yeah.
you find the right door and the right way to express yourself, and to show them that you're with them, or there's okay, there's this difference between us, you wearing this thing and I'm not, but we're still human beings, and we still have feelings, we like, there's more things we share in common than we have different. And to show that you respect them, although they might do or see something different. I think that's already more than halfway. And if you can get them out of their state of fear and actually, oh, this guy's actually friendly, he's actually nice, or then you're building a relationship right there, just as you said in the last show. You're going out there in the street and trying to build relationship, and doing something meaningful that touches people, and not just handing out a piece of paper, but having like a lasting impression. I think that's all we can really ask for, to find an open door, to build a relationship with somebody. And then we don't have to convince them or persuade them of something, but we can just leave the choice up to them, because then they have a choice. Before that, the only choice they saw was to be walking around like a zombie, because that's all the options they supposedly were exposed to. But we're exposing them to a different option, and let them
Yeah.
let them choose, sorry.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of one of the things that autonomy brings, that idea of intellectual self-defense. And I point to Ludger's. He had that presentation this past week, the Divine Labyrinth, and one of the posts he had, it was a description of a person at the you go into work, and your boss basically says, "You're late, and because you're late, I know you don't care." And under it was 14 responses, 14 different responses that a person could have to that statement, that leads in 14 different directions. And I it's just a representation of like how little we have as far as intellectual self-defense. The fact that we don't know what those 14 different options are should suggest to most people that they're basically been disarmed when it comes to intellectual self-defense. If they don't know 14 different responses to that like half of them are probably positive, that could actually turn the conversation around and make the other person consider what the statement they're making, because it isn't a statement of fact, it's a statement of opinion. But the fact that they've made these inferences, and that they're supposedly in charge, means that's like written in stone, versus being able to linguistically turn it around and say, hold on, you're associating two different things with each other. You haven't, all that kind of stuff. It's we've got there's a lot of opportunity out there to raise the bar from where we're at, because we're absolutely, like, most people are completely defenseless intellectually.
Well, I'd
And
say, sorry, you reminded me, or it made me think of something, and the term that's coming to mind is emotional self-defense. Because as soon as I heard the statement, "You were late, so I know you don't care about your job," maybe a year ago, that would have been like, of course I care about my job. I had things that, but if you take the shame out of it, if you take like the guilty feeling of being like, okay, maybe I don't care about my job as much as I should have, because if I did, I would have been here on time. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe I am not getting enough sleep and I'm not taking care of myself, and therefore my job is not actually the main priority. Maybe my car isn't working, so getting to my job isn't the main priority, because
Maybe
I
being
need to
on
fix
time
my
is
car to
not
get
as
there.
important as doing a good job. Like, you could have a person who is always on time, and that does
yeah,
And that
F all.
day that they're
another
not on
example, yeah.
time, and that day that they're not on time, getting to work was not the main priority, and that's okay.
No, I was
Also,
thinking
which
about
time?
this one guy at IBM. So I worked at the IBM help desk. I was the coordinator, and this dude was sitting right across the hall, like the aisle from me, because open office space. And literally, he would come home like 10 minutes early, and then he would sit there on his phone. And then every time he took one phone call, he would sit there for literally 20 minutes just messing around on his phone, playing games, whatever. after every one phone call. So throughout the day, he maybe worked like 3 or 4 hours at the most. But he was always on time. Not a very
Always
good work ethic.
on whose time though as well? You know, they say, "Oh, you're late." Like on whose time? You know, your time, human measured chronological time, or
What is
divine
time?
time.
Did you know that time doesn't exist? And you should judge my care about this job by the quality of work, not by some arbitrary reasons that you come up with when you're cranky at your wife.
And I'm not saying that accidents don't happen, that shit doesn't, like, life doesn't happen, and just sometimes it was your priority and it wasn't, you didn't get there. But a lot of the times we get caught up in this shame about, like, why it wasn't a priority. A lot of people do this with drug use. They'll be like, why was, if I know that this causes problems, why am I, like, continuing to do it? It's like, well, because it's serving you in some way. In some way, the thing that you're going after and you're spending your time after is your priority, not what you think you should be doing. That's not your actual priority. What you do with your life is your priority, because that is how priorities work. When I, like, if it's a priority to me to, like, learn as much about trauma as possible. That means that when I'm exhausted, I can still stay up and I can read and like fill all this information. But you put me in front of a football game, and I guarantee you my narcolepsy is going to kick in. I am going to sleep. I'll sleep through a freaking tornado ripping the roof off, because it's not a priority to be awake. And I had to learn how to be like, my body thinks it's not a priority to be awake. I had things planned to do today, but apparently what I think is my priority isn't my actual priority today. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail all of Mike's thing. I was just thinking of the other side of it, where it's like people get caught up in so many emotions that they can't go through those 14 different responses.
I think the saying go,
I've been self-employed for too long.
About your plans.
Is it possible I can share my screen? Can you hook me
Oh,
up
yeah,
so
sure. I was going to say I've been self-employed for too long because there we go. Sorry, guys, watching that. I had to give him the ability. Yeah, all the responses that came to my mind were absolutely inappropriate for a job.
Yeah, mine too.
Here's the thing, and it's from a presentation. It's called Sleight of Mouth Patterns.
That's cool.
But here's the question: Your being late shows you don't care about the job.
Ooh, and it's misspelled too. You're being late.
But here's 14 different strategies that I'm sure if you were to ask most people, they would have nothing. Maybe one of these.
Oh, yeah, I came up with number 2 and number 1. And number 3.
and by the way, for those that are in Autonomy, I would highly recommend you check this out. This is Ludger's presentation called the
Divine Labyrinth.
Ludger's awesome.
Well, I just talked to him before, and I don't know that show, but I haven't watched it yet. But this pattern of the labyrinth, I walked one of those a couple of years back in Jamaica, and in another place as well. It was a really, without knowing any of the history or so, but it's a spiritual experience actually of doing so, and it's amazing like what came to my awareness while walking those paths. It's like, and those are the labyrinths that I suppose were the original labyrinths that were done in ancient times, which is not like with dead ends and so, but you're basically slowly walking to the center of it, and then you actually are led the same way out again. So it's super interesting that the same way that carries you in is the one that brings you outside as well. So it's a journey inward and outward, which reflects also the contraction and the releasing or relaxing, which I touched upon earlier in this show even. So these are patterns of nature that are reflected in everything really. And by you like consciously walking and relieving that pattern in the labyrinth, it seems to do, quite a bit. It seems to bring to awareness some of those things that happen underneath the surface, I guess.
When sorry, go ahead. If you want.
Well, I was just going to say that, the idea of a labyrinth versus a maze is that difference between what you know, there is no dead ends, you know, so it's just a matter of keeping going. Just keep going. Just keep going, and eventually you're going to get to where you want to be, you know. And so that's really, I think, a incredibly important message, that it is just a matter of like showing up every day and just keep moving forward, you know. You will get to where you want to go. And that's kind of the message. And then also that inside to outside thing, it's always going back and forth, inside to outside, outside the inside. Very interesting concept.
Is that a biblical thing? Remember the ones you pass going up because they're going to be the ones you'll pass when you're going down.
Yeah.
Is that a biblical word? Okay. Yeah,
I'm
just
not sure
that
if
came
that's
to
a
me.
biblical, but I definitely remember that. I'm sure there's some kind of reference there.
Mm.
When I saw the labyrinth picture, the first thing that I noticed is one, that there was no dead ends, and that was pleasing. The other thing was, I can picture it in my head, but I don't know how well I'm going to be able to describe it. So if it was a whole circle and you start at one place, your path takes you into that other half. If it was split into four pieces, it takes you into another half and then walks you back, and then takes you into another half and walks you back, and takes you into another or quarter and then walks you back. So it's like connecting. It's connecting, like you're in this space, and then we're going to transition because it connects to this space, but this space is clearly different from this space. But it's like showing the interconnectedness instead of showing four separate parts. It shows four separate parts that are interconnected, and your path will always take you back and forth in between them all, because that is exactly what healing from trauma is like. You have to always keep going. Don't stop. If you have to sit down, take a break, rest, cry your eyes out for a minute, but get back up off that floor and keep going. Also, never mind, it went out the window.
Oh, sweetheart, they're playing capoeira.
Apparently it wasn't a priority.
When you're in the capoeira circle and you're playing, and it's you and somebody else in the circle, and you don't, you're trying to challenge, you're trying to get like a blow in to apply a kick, and you can't get it in because the other one is just closed up, and you can't find any way to enter and to attack because there's no open space that you can find to enter. So what do? You focus on the music and you keep on going, you keep on moving, you move to the left, you move to the right, you might do a little cartwheel, or you might do like a different move to that side, and all of a sudden you see everything upside down, and from that perspective, all of a sudden you see like openings that you couldn't see before because you change your perspective, or you move to the left, you move to the right, or you change the level of the game. You were up there, and then you just lower your center of gravity, and all of a sudden, from that angle you see different things. So, but it's like you said, it's a question of keeping on moving. If you stop the flow, then the game is over. So you have to continue the game and keep on doing, and then keep on moving and repositioning yourself. Sometimes all we can do is just go to bed and sleep and hope that we wake up and things seem a little bit less difficult or less scary. And sometimes that's the only thing we can do. But we have to keep on moving always, and look to relocate. Don't stay in the same spot. If you stay in the same spot and you stop moving, then it's easy to get hit.
Why are things scary at all? Because we're all like believing in immortality and life after death and all of that. So why would anything be scary at all? Like whether your character dies today or in 100 years, it really doesn't matter.
Because we have attachments to these feelings and these bodies and this experience.
I remember my first D&D game ever. I had a horse and a dog. Mm-hmm. And I wrote, my ex-husband was the dungeon master. Eric says fear, but I don't know in relation to what, because why are we afraid? Fear of fear itself. But yeah, my husband was a dungeon master, my first husband, and we were playing, and I put a lot of time and effort into creating the dog and creating the horse, putting a lot of background. Like I got him when I was 6, and he's been my horse for the whole time I've been traveling. And then, like, literally the first place we went into some poison weeds, and both the horse and the dog died.
You want to hear what happened?
And
to
the
my
dungeon,
pet
hang on,
D&D?
the dungeon master said, you can't have one person with a horse and nobody else without a horse because it ruins the gameplay. So I had to kill your horse and your dog.
You have a terrible dungeon master.
Well, he was my husband, so I'm sure he was getting back at me for something.
Technically, this was my second campaign playing, but I
was
had
years
this
ago.
horse. I had this horse as a pet, and supposedly it had been like my horse for, ever since my character had gotten adopted, da 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 da. And it had been attacked, and it wasn't gonna make it. So I ended up killing it just because I was like, I don't want it to suffer, or I rescued another animal or something because I knew that I didn't have enough power to like bring this horse back to life. You know what my team did? They recreated the horse voice. They made a voice for this horse, and so the entire time this is happening, as the DM is talking about that, they're going, "Henri, why? Why didn't you save me?" Like neighing like a horse, and that is still carried over into the current D&D games, and it still makes me feel horrible because there's still an attachment where I'm like, why was my character so cold? They really wanted that wolf as a pet, but did it really have to like just kill its horse? Like, is this character okay? I was like, it's a fucking character. Come on.
So you're saying a similar, Eric says fear of the unknown, but it's a similar attachment to this corporeal existence.
Yeah, I want to comment on that, on the fear of the unknown, because it seems to be a reality in torture too, that actually it is perceived worse. The fear of what is going to come is worse than of the actual, in that instance, the torture itself. So, and sometimes it's described of people that underwent, those experiences, that they felt a sense of relief when that which was announced to them or which they were threatened with, what was actually done to them, because that was it was worse, the expectation and the the knowing of what is coming, and the fear of that was worse than the actual deed itself, so to say. And if we look at our situation that we live in right now, isn't that what is being done collectively? Well, it might not be so bad now, but the second wave is coming. Next time it's going to be much worse, and we have to prepare and imagine what's around the corner. It's always,
if you don't take it seriously, you don't like my grandma.
And then and we're being kept in that constant state of fear of, oh my god, something terrible, and right there, and you have to put on this and you have to do that, otherwise it's going to be so bad. So
JP Sears did a really good one on the masks today. Go ahead, Willow.
I just want to point out that fear is a biological process that is meant to keep you alive. Fear in caveman days, like if you're hanging out by your fire and all of a sudden the bush next to you starts rustling, you're going to get up pretty quick. You're going to be like, what is that? You're going to have a little bit of fear. But the problem that I've noticed is normally what happens is you wait, you figure out what's behind the bush. It could be food. It could also be something very dangerous. You don't know until you actually see it. But it could be something that is really good for you. And it gives you caution. It makes you freeze and go, what is this? I need to figure this out. But the problem is, most of society has had the experience of, oh my god, I feel fear. There's something scary going to happen. Something scary did happen, and it was way scarier than I ever thought it was ever going to be. And then when I went to go tell someone who I trusted, they don't understand what the hell I'm talking about. Even if they're trying to help, they don't get it. They clearly don't understand what I'm saying and how it made me feel and what the experience was like. And you have no guide to talk you through it. That's trauma. That is trauma. So fear was a good process that like kept us safe, and it has been corrupted into this thing by conditioning us to think that fear is always going to precipitate. It's going to come before. Proceed. Proceed. It was always going to precede bad things happening.
The permanence of it is what is the problem, right? The permanence of fear is what causes the problem, because we were not meant to live in a constant state of fear, because that becomes chronic, and then is not without.
But how can you not?
So chronic
If you watch the news, if you spend the time with the news, especially American news, how can you not live in constant fear? I mean, there is the death sands from Sahara. There are the murder hornets. There are invisible freaking fires. You won't even see them. And, you know, they say they're in Antarctica, but they could be right here, right now. How would I know? How would I know?
Let's not even talk about the music that they play, the intros that they play, the way they transition into things, and the symbols that they use, and like the rituals that they actually use to formulate their shows. It's really akin to hypnosis. Like, you can't avoid feeling fear.
It's not akin to hypnosis. It is hypnosis.
So raising excellence in that context means that maybe one of the next shows could be on what's the good news, because we're hearing the bad news every day, all day long.
Raising excellence is live twice a week. That's the good news. According to Tony, we're giving him a lot to think about today, and he's thanking us so much. So, you know, that's the good news. I just wish that Raising Excellence was like in front of more eyeballs, because I'm sure that more people would like it. But I think that, I don't know, Facebook doesn't like us very much.
YouTube's not looking so hot either. So
that's okay. Even for a few people, we'll still keep doing the shows.
Other social medias. I like Float. I've been doing on Float lately, in Minds. I don't know if you can stream there.
Well, you know.
Yeah, we can stream Float if we want to, but I guess we've got some restrictions on how many places we can stream.
Yeah,
to. And at the moment, Float is still pretty small.
But if we do have other social media accounts, we can paste the links from YouTube or Facebook or whatever there as well, so that we don't need to stream live to all of them. That's besides the point. If you guys can help us share the link or put it in front of my eyeballs, that would be good. But we're not going to stop the show even if only a few people show up. And sometimes there are 100 people. It's just not always.
Yeah, I think we've got a longer term concept in mind. So I mean, it's you know, we're developing our own skills, understanding ourselves, really kind of developing this in front of other people, so that so it is kind of a opportunity where we're all kind of working together, including the audience, to find the right combination that really suits everybody.
And Mike just gave up our secret. We're really doing this for ourselves, not for you guys.
That's how any great thing gets done.
Well, I love the Raising Excellence, and I love seeing it every day, or twice a week. I love being a part of it. I love the concepts that we explore. Because that way I can, you know, become a better person. So it's all good.
Is that self of ours truly different of the self of the other?
Who is the self that's speaking?
Is there other anyway?
Yeah, at some level we are all connected. So yeah, we're just raising the awareness as well as
discerning where that level is. Like, we're all connected, but we're all separate.
So there's no other, so we're all talking to our own self right now.
Oh, Agnieszka, you're so
Which
cute.
Part?
I like compliments. Oh, yes.
I don't think self is the one who likes compliments. I really don't think so.
No, probably not.
I have a vanity part that's coming out too, and she's like,
Yeah, Willow, you're so cute. You look so good with those glasses and the nice necklace.
Oh, thank you. I do love the necklace. I've never liked the glasses.
And Michael is cute too. Actually, every time my mother walks into the house and Michael is on video, he goes, "Oh, it's the cute guy." So.
Not gonna lie, I had to get over this like initial hesitance to like really be friends with Mike, because you look a lot like my biological father. Like, the lack of hair, everything. And like even like the facial, I was like, but I got over it. You're a nice person.
And I'm supposed to do a show with this dude? Oh shit.
I know. I was like, how is this gonna affect like me opening up? Am I ever gonna be like, no?
Yeah, but he can become your daddy avatar and replace that conditioning and with some.
Well, more, as soon as I realized that I made that connection, I was like, all right, cool. So if he ever gives me criticism and I get like really butthurt about it, that's why. I'm be like, just because he looks like your dad doesn't. It's just a trigger to like deal with your issue. Be like, because I actually had this problem with another older gentleman in my life. Like I had a conversation
Now
with him.
Mike is an older gentleman.
I meant older gentleman as in like older than me.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Okay. Just
old enough
checking.
to look like my father. You know, that's not an insult. But I had a huge problem because I felt like the conversation was never going anywhere and I was never heard. And it was just like I felt like I was trapped until I agreed with him. And I started crying when my husband was like asking me about it. I was like, why is this so emotional? I don't really give a shit what this guy thinks. Like, what's going on? And I realized, I was like, oh yeah, it reminds me of how my own father used to talk to me and how I used to not be able to get, I was like, oh, so it has nothing to do with the person. So as soon as I realized that, I was like, all right, cool. I can learn from Mike and I can maybe reprogram some of these things that I learned to associate with people.
It's better to reprogram stuff yourself than to get the TV to do it.
Absolutely.
The whole family constellation thing would be really fitting here. That is exactly that. It's expressing, the members of your family, how you put them, and those could be anybody. It could be even Michael. So anybody in that group, in that setting of family constellation could be your father, your sister, some great grandfather, and you kind of place them like where they stand in your life in relation to you. It's super interesting. And then you see all of a sudden, like they would express something, they would say something, what they couldn't know it because they've never met that person, but they would say this is itching, or they say like a word that only you knew that they said to you, and it's like it's mind-boggling. And then like the one who's facilitating that, if he's experienced, like he'll be able to like see a pattern or to see what's the problem, like somebody really important is standing far away from you, or like somebody's missing you, or somebody's like overshadowed by somebody else, or you can't see them or you can't turn around. And then he would rearrange where they stand and put one closer to the other and put one in front of you, one to your side, and so that everybody's like, oh yeah, no, I'm feeling good right now, oh I'm relaxing right here, oh I feel close to my daughter right now. And then it's so amazing, and that seems to radiate in people's lives also. And yeah, so family constellation is a super interesting topic.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, often when I used to work with Carol really closely, she would often quote my father or like embody my father somehow and speak as if she were my father. And I had a lot of anger sometimes toward her, unexplained anger, like, how dare you treat me this way? But, it's been years.
I had that reaction to my jiu-jitsu teacher because she has the same smile as my stepmother. And I didn't realize it until she laughed at a joke that I said and kind of did one of those.
And you wanted to slap her.
Well, she did one of those really nice things where like she was sitting next to me and she went to like touch me to like get my, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, that little touch. And she smiled and my whole body just moved away from her. And I didn't understand it until I saw her smile. And I said, you remind me of something. My whole body just reacted to it. I was like, where is this coming from? Because I really like her. I literally wrestled with her like 5 minutes ago, and it's really fun.
You really like her. You choke her out regularly. You like her.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. I think we should close up this popsicle stand till next week when more surprises are in store.
Oh dear God, popsicles sound amazing. It's so hot in this house.
Yeah, it's not a cheesecake day today, is it?
Hey, frozen cheesecake. If you give me frozen cheesecake, that's a popsicle. I told you, I don't discriminate. All cheesecakes are loved in my house.
How about some like maple ice cream?
That'd be okay too. Is it cheesecake flavored?
I don't think you ever tasted cheesecake before you tasted my mommy's one.
Oh, hey, you have to go to Germany.
Cheesecake. I bet your mom's
That's
cheesecake is the shit. I'd fly to Germany for some cheesecake.
Yeah, I've crossed oceans to come back to that. It's very
well, see, now you said it. Now, when next time we're visiting in your neck of the woods, we're gonna get some cheesecake from your mom, right?
Big time, yes, man, right away.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll have a blast. Yeah, we're gonna do family constellation. We're gonna do cheesecake. We're gonna wow.
Why don't we? Yeah, maybe you can explain family constellations to us some more in the show next week. But hang on, we said we were going to close down the show, and now we're still talking.
Well, hold on. I just had another, like,
People
image
left
run
already.
through my head
Okay,
when he
go.
was talking about like
There's still people
doing
here.
family
though.
constellations and like therapy basically. I was like, and whenever someone's talking too much, just shove cheesecake in their face. You can't talk with cheesecake in your mouth. So I really like this therapy session idea.
The
I think I might
cheesecake
try it out.
therapy. Yes.
Yes.
We place it very close to you.
Well, thank you as the audience. Thank you so much
Thanks
for
you.
taking the time and giving us your attention. We hope this was useful and helpful. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to send them our way. We have a website. It's raisingexcellence.live. You can check us out there. And with that said, I guess we'll go to the closing.
Yeah. And thank you, Shambhavi, for sending us a sticker. We love you too.
Oh,
Just
sweet.
last-
Namaskar, Shambhavi.
All right, now I'm playing the outro. Bye, everyone. Bye. Eat some cheesecake.